The first thing I heard was the sound of glass shattering. Not a gentle clink. Not an accidental slip. A violent, deliberate crash like someone wanted the whole world to stop and look. I froze halfway through the dining room doorway, my hand still gripping the frame, my breath locked inside my chest. My sister, Layla, stood at the center of the room, arms folded, her expression twisted with the kind of satisfaction people get only when they're certain they hold power over you. "Oops," she said, smiling without warmth. "Didn't see you there, Maya." Everyone turned. Chairs creaked. Forks paused midair. Her husband, Zion, didn't look up right away. He sat still, staring at his plate as if the food might swallow him whole. And suddenly, inexplicably, I knew something was wrong. Not the usual wrong. Not the petty competition. Not the mocking smirks. Not the passive remarks that always sliced deeper than she pretended. Something else simmered in the room. Something sharp. Heavy. I could feel it even before I stepped fully inside. "Sorry I'm late," I murmured, adjusting my coat and pretending the tremor in my voice was from the cold outside. "You're always late," Layla said loudly, so every pair of eyes swung back to me. "Probably trying to make an entrance, right?" Her friends snickered. My stomach tightened. It was supposed to be a simple family dinner. Nothing dramatic. Nothing dangerous. Just a chance to breathe before the chaos of the week ahead. But Layla never missed an opportunity to humiliate me in front of an audience. I pulled out a chair. The wood screeched against the floor. Zion flinched, an actual flinch like the sound hurt him. I noticed. I didn't say anything. Dinner resumed with forced chatter and clinking cutlery. But I couldn't stop scanning the table. The way Layla's smile seemed painted on too tightly. The way Zion avoided her gaze like it burned. The way his knee bounced under the table with frantic restlessness. And the way he kept glancing at me. Not with desire, not with guilt, but with a kind of bleak urgency I didn't understand yet. When the conversation lulled, Layla struck again. "So Maya," she said sweetly. "Still alone." A few people chuckled. A couple avoided my eyes out of pity. Heat rushed to my cheeks, but I held my expression steady. "Still working on myself," I said, matching her tone. "You know, healing. Growing." Layla snorted. "Healing from what?" "A breakup that happened, 2 years ago?" "Come on, Maya. At some point you have to admit it's you." A sharp silence fell. Even her friends shifted uncomfortably. Zion's fork clattered against his plate. He closed his eyes for a fraction of a second, a long pained blink before raising his head. "Layla," he said quietly. "Stop." The room stiffened. No one ever spoke to my sister like that. Especially not her husband. She blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me." "You heard me," he said, voice still low, still steady. "Just stop." Everyone stared. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my fingertips. Layla let out a laugh that sounded brittle. "You're defending her? Really?" Zion didn't answer. He just looked at me. And in that look, buried deep beneath the fear and exhaustion, was something else. Regret. My stomach dropped. He wasn't defending me out of kindness. He was defending me because he owed me something. Something heavy. Something he should not have owed. A cold rush swept through my body. No, that didn't make sense. Zion barely spoke to me. If anything, he tried too hard to avoid being alone in a room with me, like my presence made him uncomfortable. I had always assumed it was because he didn't like me. Maybe because I wasn't flashy or successful like my sister. Maybe because he thought I was a burden. But this was different. "Why are you looking at her like that?" Layla demanded. Zion swallowed. His throat worked as if every word he tried to speak turned to stone inside him. He glanced at Layla, at the table full of guests, then back at me. He looked like a man trapped. A man about to do something he couldn't undo. "No reason," he finally said, but his voice cracked on the last syllable. Layla's eyes narrowed. She smelled blood. And she always chased blood. She leaned back, crossing her arms. "Actually, I think there is a reason." "Layla." "Shut up," she snapped at him. Several guests exchanged glances. My pulse surged. "This is what I mean," she continued, picking up a glass of water and swirling it slowly, dramatically, like she was rehearsing a scene. "People like Maya always make themselves victims. They walk around expecting sympathy. Expecting people to care about their miserable little problems. The glass slipped from my control. My lips parted slightly. I didn't want to fight. Not tonight. Not like this. But she kept going. She doesn't even have a real job. She doesn't have a partner. She doesn't contribute anything to the family. But sure, let's all feel sorry for her because she's what? Sad. She smiled. A cruel smile. Pathetic. Something snapped quietly inside me. Not loud enough for others to hear, but loud enough for the air to change around me. Zion pushed his chair back. The legs scraped violently, cutting through the tension like a scream. That's enough, he said louder this time. Layla raised an eyebrow. Or what? Zion inhaled deeply, his hands shaking slightly as he braced them on the table. Or I tell them, he whispered. The room went dead still. My skin prickled. My lungs tightened. My heart slammed against my ribs. Tell them what? Layla laughed, but the sound faltered. Tell them what? Zion turned toward me again. And that's when I realized the truth was about me. I could see it in his eyes, the guilt, the fear, the shame swallowing him whole. My fingers went numb. He wasn't looking at Layla. He wasn't looking at the guests. He was looking at me. Zion, I whispered before I could stop myself. His face crumpled. Layla caught the moment, the connection between us, and her expression shifted from mockery to horror. What the hell is going on? She hissed. Zion opened his mouth. I felt the world tilt. He was going to say it. Something that would destroy everything, him, Layla, me. I shook my head almost imperceptibly. Don't. Please don't. He saw it. Pain flickered across his face. But then he said, in a voice so broken it barely existed, you shouldn't have treated her like this. Not after what happened between us. My vision tunneled. My breath vanished. Layla's glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. And the entire room exploded into chaos. Zion's words didn't just echo, they detonated. The room erupted instantly. Chairs scraped, someone gasped. Someone else swore under their breath. But all of it felt miles away, muffled, like I'd been shoved underwater. My sister stared at me, eyes wide, unblinking, mouth parted in a trembling, disbelieving oh. A second ago she'd been queen of the room, sharp-tongued, self-assured, untouchable. Now she looked like a child who had walked into a nightmare. What happened between you? She whispered, her voice shaking. Maya, what is he talking about? My own throat felt closed, strangled from inside. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. This wasn't how the truth was supposed to come out. I wasn't supposed to be the one blamed for what I didn't even want. Zion stood abruptly. His chair toppled backward with a crack, but he didn't turn to pick it up. His hands were trembling violently, his chest rising and falling like he was fighting for air. Layla, he said, voice cracking, you need to listen. Actually listen. No, she whispered, shaking her head. No, you don't get to say my sister's name like that. I closed my eyes for a moment, fighting the dizzy rush of memory, of shame, of guilt I didn't owe but felt all the same. Because I knew exactly what he meant. And I had spent months burying it. Layla took a step toward me. Maya, did something happen? With my husband. Her voice wasn't angry, not yet. It was frightened. And that made it worse. I forced myself to speak, even as my stomach knotted. Layla, please. It's not what you think. She flinched like the words themselves slapped her. Then what is it? Why would he say something like that? The guests were silent statues now. Every eye locked on us. Every breath trapped in collective anticipation. Zion raked a hand through his hair. Because I can't let you blame her for your cruelty anymore. Not when she already carries enough. I shook my head. Zion, don't. I have to, he whispered. He turned to the room, to my sister, but his eyes kept drifting back to me, an invisible thread tugging between us that made my skin crawl with dread. It happened 5 months ago, he began. Layla sucked in a sharp breath. He continued, voice trembling. When you and I were barely talking. When you were staying with your friend in Lahore for 2 weeks. I was lonely, miserable, convinced our marriage was falling apart. You think that makes anything okay? Layla's voice was rising, rising, rising. No, he said. Nothing about this is okay. His gaze lowered to the table, as though he was ashamed to even look at the world. I was drinking too much, he said softly. Going out late. staying out even later. That night, I drove to Maya's place. My heart dropped like a stone. Every breath in the room stopped. Layla's face drained of all color. "Why her?" she whispered, her eyes burning into me. "Of all people, why my sister?" Zion swallowed hard. "Because she was kind to me. Because you weren't speaking to me. Because she was the only one who listened." I squeezed my eyes shut again, pain tightening every muscle. I remembered that night. How he had shown up at my door at nearly midnight. Eyes red, staggering slightly, coat soaked from the rain. How he had broken down. Sobbing, shaking. Confessing he thought Layla didn't love him anymore. How I had made him tea, sat him on the couch, told him things would get better. How he had misread everything. How his hand had cupped my cheek with trembling desperation. How I had grabbed his wrist and said firmly, "No, you're not thinking clearly. This isn't right." How he had apologized again and again until he passed out on the couch. But none of that mattered now. Not to Layla. Not in this moment. Because she wasn't hearing the truth. She was hearing the betrayal she wanted to believe. "So you slept with her?" she demanded, her voice cracking like thin ice. "No," I said immediately, stepping forward instinctively. "Layla, I swear." "Shut up," she screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You don't ever talk right now. Not after this." Her rage was volcanic. But beneath it, barely hidden, was heartbreak. Zion pressed a fist to his forehead. "We didn't sleep together. I swear on my life. I came to her apartment drunk and upset. She stopped me from doing something I'd regret. She put me to bed on the couch. That's all." Layla's chest heaved. Tears clung stubbornly to her lashes, refusing to fall. "Then why?" she whispered. "Why would you say what happened between us like it was some secret you two shared?" Zion's silence was devastating. He glanced at me again, the guilt, the heaviness, the regret pooling in his eyes, and I suddenly understood. He wasn't confessing to expose me. He was confessing because he was breaking. Because he couldn't stand what Layla had turned into. Her cruelty, her mockery, her constant need to bruise others to feel tall. Because in some twisted way, protecting me felt like the last decent thing he could do to salvage whatever part of himself he still recognized. But Layla interpreted the silence differently. Her face twisted. "Oh my God," she choked, covering her mouth. "You have feelings for her." My breath caught. "What?" "No." "Yes," Layla spat, rounding on him. "You do. Don't lie. You've been distant with me. Avoiding me. You barely look at me anymore. But tonight? You look at her like she's the center of the room." Zion's shoulders sagged in defeat. "It's not like that," he said weakly. "But it was something," she hissed. His silence answered for him. Her voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "You love her." "No," his voice broke. "I don't love her. I love you. I've always loved you. But I hurt you. And I hurt her. And I've been trying to fix everything alone because I didn't want either of you to drown with me." Layla's first tear finally fell. But she didn't crumble. She hardened. She straightened her spine, inhaled shakily, and wiped her face. Then she turned to me. Her expression was chilling. Cold. Unforgiving. "You should have told me," she whispered. "I didn't want to hurt you," I whispered back. "You already did." I stepped toward her. "Layla, stay away from me." The words hit like a slap. My throat tightened painfully. "I never betrayed you. You didn't have to sleep with him to betray me," she said quietly, eyes glistening. "Sometimes betrayal is letting someone fall in love with you, while you pretend not to notice." I felt the floor tilt. He didn't. I didn't, Layla, it wasn't like that. She shook her head, a small, tired, broken motion. Then she picked up her purse from the table, wiped her cheeks, and said to the stunned room, "Dinner's over." She turned to leave, but Zion caught her wrist. "Layla." She pulled away as if burned. "Don't touch me." The door slammed behind her. A sharp, trembling silence filled the room. Zion sank into his chair, burying his face in his hands. And I stood there, my heart cracking open, my lungs barely working, my sister's last words carving themselves into me like a knife I would never fully pull out. "You let him fall in love with you." I didn't chase her. I didn't know how. But even as the room emptied, even as Zion whispered broken apologies into the hollow air, Even as I trembled in the middle of shattered glass and unfinished food, a small horrifying truth began to bloom inside me. She wasn't entirely wrong. Not completely. Because somewhere between loneliness and guilt, between quiet nights and unspoken emotions, I had felt something too. It wasn't love, but it was something. And that something, that tiny impossible thing, was the betrayal neither of us could forgive.